Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's ASI webinar. My name is Jay Parsons. I'm one of your hosts for this evening. I'm a professor in the Department of Agricultural Economics and the director of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Joining me this evening is Dr. Jim Logan. He's one of the co-chairs of the ASI Animal Health Committee. Welcome to Dr. Logan. And Jim, I know you wanted to say a few words to kick us off here.
Thank you, Jay, and we appreciate you for moderating this for us tonight. And on behalf of Dr. Wolf and Amy Hendrickson and ASI, we want to thank Dr. Ringler for being our presenter this evening. And I want to thank you also, Jay. Just a little bit about Dr. Ringler. She is a veterinary medical officer for the National Sheep and Goat Team with USDA APHIS Veterinary Services. In addition to working for USDA, she owns and operates a small ruminant veterinary practice in Western Pennsylvania, where she educates, trains, and provides medical treatment to sheep and goat owners in the community. I hope she provides that medical treatment to the animals and not to the owners, but Stephanie is a FAMACHA certified instructor, and for just your information, FAMACHA is basically a test or a technique for detecting clinical anemia in sheep and goats related to parasitic infection. She's a certified instructor and she has taught several courses in West Virginia. In 2023, Dr. Ringler was recognized by the American Association of Small Ruminant Practitioners as their 2023 Emerging Leader, which has allowed her to create biosecurity materials that can be used by small ruminant veterinarians around the country. So we have a very well-renowned speaker and somebody who's very knowledgeable about this topic. Before we turn it over to Stephanie, I also would like to encourage everybody to read the video, or not to read, but to watch the video on the history of Scrapie, which was produced by ASI and made through funding provided by USDA APHIS. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Ringler.
Thank you so much, Dr. Logan, for that introduction. I do want to mention that my colleagues, Dr. Linda Detweiler and Dr. Diane Sun, are also on the call today to help answer questions and help with the presentation. Linda, do you want to say hello?
Linda, you're on mute.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks. Very pleased to be here, and you know, Stephanie will do a bang-up job, and we're just here as backup. But good to be here tonight. Thank you.
All right. Well, I first want to just say thank you so much for attending the webinar today. The Sheep and Goat team extends a huge welcome to the new producers learning about ID today, as well as the producers who have been a part of the program since its start. We value all your time, hard work, and love that you have for your animals, and we hope to assist you where we can. So I hope you learn a lot tonight, and if you have any questions afterwards, we'll be excited to answer them. I'm going to turn off my video while I'm presenting. All right, so welcome to the National Scrapie Eradication Program, Options to Meet the USDA Sheep and Goat Identification Requirements. So our agenda today, we have goals of the webinar, review of ID requirements in CFR, record keeping requirements, key points of the OSS, OHS, and questions from the audience. Goals of the webinar: answer questions from the audience on sheep and goat official ID requirements, close knowledge gaps in understanding official ID requirements for tattooed and microchipped animals, and provide resources to the sheep and goat industry found on the USDA website. I do want to make the additional note to always check with your state on additional sheep and goat movement requirements, because sometimes they differ from our federal regulations. So first, we're going to begin with review of ID requirements. Official ID requirements for sheep and goats. This is kind of just an intro slide, and I'm just going to continue on to our next slide. So our next slide shows our USDA website, where you can find out more about sheep and goat identification. This is a brand new website that launched April 1st of this year, so we encourage you to go check it out. There are a lot of ID materials on here, popular links, and how to request official sheep and goat tags. So we'll start with types of official identification. We have official ear tags, visual, and RFID, so USDA provided ear tags and USDA approved ear tags. Registry tattoos or EIDs with certificates. EIDs for animals required to be identified in the SFCP with certificate. APHIS assigned flock ID number tattoo with individual number, and official back tags for animals moving directly to slaughter. Again, with the audience tonight, you may be in all the different realms of this type of official identification that you use, or maybe you haven't used official identification yet and you get ID at the market that you send your animals to. So we'll talk about all those different methods tonight, and if you have any questions, please let us know. The identification comes in many shapes and colors, plastic or metal, but all official tags have the US shield. So as you can see from this picture, there is a US shield circled, and that's how you know that it's official. Plastic flock tags. Here are some pictures of plastic flock tags right here. We have the Sherwell tags to the left that are rectangular. We have some Premier and All Flex tags as well. We have metal tags, flock metal tags, orange metal serial tags, and blue meat metal serial tags, slaughter only use. I do want to make the comment that for our plastic official tags that you can order and the blue ones, or you can only get plastic flock tags in certain colors. You won't be able to get them in a certain blue color just because we don't want them to be the meat only tags if you're trying to just send them for breeding or another reason. RFID tags are shown here. And then we have government provided tags, which we'll talk about later as well. We have metal serial tags that you might receive at a market or from a dealer. And then we also have some tags that maybe our teams will give out to producers, or if in case you're in a situation where you receive animals that have been abandoned, maybe someone from the state will come out and tag them with orange or blue metal tags. We also have plastic tags. You can get up to 100 flock tags for new producers. Sherwell applicators cost approximately $28 for producers, and that would be the applicator you would use with the free 100 flock tags. I'll show another slide in a second. So again, official USDA tags are free, up to 100 for first-time orders, and then we have a toll-free number that you can call to get those free tags. Sherwell tags are the current free tags offered. On the little goat, you can see that that's the Sherwell tag and his ear. Sometimes our contracts do change, and maybe in the coming years, it might not be Sherwell anymore. It could be a different company, so just keep that in mind as well. My team has created a few different educational materials. This is one of them. This is a flyer saying attention sheep and goat owners. It comes in multiple different languages, and it lists our approved official Scrapie tag manufacturers with their phone numbers and how to order them in cases where you've already received your free 100 tags. Earless goats. I know some of you might have some La Mancha goats. They're my favorite breed of the goats, but they are tricky with putting in ear tags. So we have an alternative route, and that would be getting a durable strap or collar to put around their neck and then putting the tag through the collar, one of the holes on the collar. And you'd want to do this one if they don't have enough ear cartilage, or if you don't want to obscure the official tattoo. They must accommodate for animals' growth. Neck strap with ear tag may not be removed. Again, these are certain circumstances where you're sending your animals maybe to a market that will eventually go to slaughter, something like that. We know this isn't always ideal for all operations. Here's a picture of the collar options for earless goats. As you can see, it's in the dog collar. Then they've put the tag into one of the holes. Tattoos for sheep and goats. Some of you on this call might be in this category where you have sheep that are mostly tattooed. And so we have different options for using that as official ID, either a breed, flock, herd registry number. There is an example here of you would have a flock ID assigned in our Scrapie database, and then you would have your registry ID as well, and those would be in our system. And then we have non-registered animals can be tattooed, and then you would tattoo with the APHIS assigned flock herd ID. So you would tattoo with the PA 1234. These would be shown in our Scrapie database, making them official numbers. We also have breed registration number for movement, as long as ICVI lists it. Animals over 18 months in slaughter channels or any age going through a market not in slaughter channels must have an official ear tag with rare exceptions. This does come from our program standards, pages 54 to 55, if you'd like to learn more. Breed registry tattoos. We do have registries on our website, and you can see who's been approved. We would like you to have a copy of the registration certificate to accompany the animal at all times. The certificate must have tattoo information printed on it from registry and must correspond to the tattoo in the animal's ears. Again, there's an example of this showing the V as in Victor 316 in the goat's ear. If not in the same name of the current owner, a copy of the completed application for transfer of ownership is permitted, assuming the sale occurred in the last 60 days. I know breed registry tattoos and other methods other than ear tags can get confusing, and again, we're here to answer questions. Flock ID tattoos for non-registered animals. This is just an example. Again, you would have the flock ID in the right ear, and in the left ear, you could have the individual animal number. In the right ear for the flock ID, again, this is the number that is assigned by the USDA's Scrapie database through calling the state that you live in. Back tags. These can also be considered official ID for animals that are moving direct to slaughter establishment through a restricted market. If greater than 18 months, must be identified to flock of origin. Or maybe they can't be ear tagged because of absent or injured ears, or maybe they're dangerous goats or sheep and the market is unable to tag them. In our standards, we say to apply the back tag within 3 inches of the pole. Typically, in this situation, the market has a compliance agreement in place with USDA and the state that mentions that back tags can be used for official identification in those situations. Goats and back tags. Goats must be going direct to slaughter through a restricted market. A restricted market means that animals are going to be going to slaughter, and that's why we kind of put stars right there for that. Use must be approved by the ABIC in SAHO. That's where I mentioned about the compliance agreement with the market. And then you would apply the back tag to the back. Again, I know as a producer, you may not know if that market has a compliance agreement in place, but our teams can always assist you with that if you're concerned. I know in Texas, there's a lot of wild goats out there that go through markets, and that's a situation where they need the back tags. So electronic implantable identification device. These are not acceptable as the only official ID for slaughter channels or markets. Again, animals that are going through slaughter channels, we need to be able to see their ID in their ear, reason being because there isn't going to be a microchip reader at the slaughter plant or other locations, so we wouldn't know that that animal is officially ID'd. Again, I go into details about where to put the implant. We would need a tattoo of an E or an ET in the ear, or if no ear, the tail fold to indicate where implant is. EID guidelines, again, just like what I mentioned with the tattoo, we have guidelines for unregistered animals and registered animals. And I'll kind of just leave this here for you. One main thing to note is that you must bring an implant reader with you, I guess, if the animal is moving through the market. Again, EID is not acceptable for animals going through slaughter channels, but if they're not going through slaughter channels, this is what you'd need to do. If you'd like to find out more about interstate animal movement requirements, you can go to interstatelivestock.com, and this is where you can kind of select where your animal is from, where it's going to, and find out what you need to do to make sure that you're following both state and federal regulations. Also, do you have more than one official ID? No more than one official ear tag, except if the same ID number as existing tag, or there's special circumstances with intensified need to maintain identity, such as export, quarantine herds, field studies, disease surveys, experiments, SFCP, and experts again. 840 tag is the additional tag, or the flock ID tag for animals residing in that flock. So there's special, if you look at the picture here, we have the official tag in the sheep's right ear, and then in the left ear is just the farm tag number 16, and that's okay. Don't forget that you must have a premises ID, so a PIN, and a flock ID to use RFID tags or implants. So that means that you would have to have a registered flock ID in our national Scrapie database. Additionally, you would sign up to get a state and federal NPIN number, and that would be put into the national Scrapie database as well, so that they would connect. And then when you go to order your RFID tags or implants, the company would see that you have both of those numbers available. When are official IDs needed for movement? Again, we know that this can be tricky. I think one major thing is how we define interstate commerce. So that's, is the animal being transported across a state line or sold to an out-of-state buyer? Is the animal commingling with any animal that's been handled in interstate commerce off the premise of the flock? Is the animal being loaded or unloaded at a premises or animal concentration point where any animals have been received or from which any animals have moved in interstate commerce? Or has the animal left the premises on which it currently resides if it is owned by a person who engages in interstate commerce of animals? So there's a lot of items here that can be kind of confusing, but we know it's not always straightforward, and we're hoping in these next few slides we can go through which scenarios you would need official ID. We do have this handy ID decision tree for you, and it's on our website. This is kind of a zoomed out version of it, and then we'll kind of zoom back in. And it has a start here, so you can find out, okay, are my animals sexually intact? Yes. Are the animals in slaughter channels? No. And then you would go through what you would need for slaughter only. So in the instances that an animal is moving to management or grazing purposes or to a federally approved market, you can see if it is, you would need an owner hauler statement, including group identification number, can be used instead of an official animal ID, an interstate certificate of veterinary inspection, or no, okay, are the animals crossing state lines, and then go from there. So it kind of helps you, give you a simple version on how to decide what you need when moving your animals. We do have types of federally approved auctions. Again, I know this can get tricky because you would have to know if your market is unrestricted, restricted, it's federally approved or not federally approved. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to mention that there's different types of auctions here, but I don't want to go through necessarily all of these points. this will be used later on as a reference for you that we can send out. That way, if you would like to learn more, you'll have it in front of you. So we have unrestricted federally approved auctions, so all class sales. We have restricted federally approved auctions that are slaughter only sales. And so based off of whatever market you're going to in your state, then you would know how your animal should arrive. Again, each state and each market is different. So that's why we have different bullets. And I will show you also that we have unrestricted auctions, all classes, and restricted auctions, slaughter only, and this is for non-federally approved markets. And I'll just hold this here for a moment. All right, so under the 9 CFR, an animal is restricted to slaughter channels when it's identified with a slaughter only and or meat tag or tattoo, sold at a restricted sale, moved on an OHS, so an owner hauler statement indicating they are in slaughter channels, moved without the required official ID, OHS or ICV that would have been required for them to legally move unrestricted, sold with a bill of sale marked slaughter only or meat, or unloaded or resided at a terminal feedlot, a slaughter establishment, or a restricted animal sale. So for this, we just want to make it clear we don't want animals leaving slaughter channels once they're in slaughter channels. And that's why a lot of these boxes kind of mention, okay, they've been in situations where they would be commingling with slaughter animals or they were actually at a slaughter establishment. If you're seeing blue meat tags, metal tags and ears at the market of sheep and goats, those animals will be going to slaughter. And if your animal receives one of those, then you know that your animal will be going to slaughter somewhere in the channel. So there are exceptions to official identification ID requirements. Wethers less than 18 months of age, all sheep and goats less than 18 months of age in slaughter channels, single flock of origin animals moving to a federally approved market where the market has agreed to act as an agent to apply official identification. I know a lot of you probably have markets where they're applying the orange or the blue tag for you. They may charge you a few dollars to do that, and that's a great service that they're able to do since they are federally approved. Animals moving for management or grazing purposes between premises owned or leased by the same person with no commingling with other unidentified animals. Example, this would be if you have animals moving from Wyoming to Montana for grazing purposes, or they're owned by the same person. I do have an asterisk that shows owner hauler statement with group ID number, or ICVI, is required for movements in interstate commerce for these single flock of origin animals moving to a federally approved market, and also for animals in slaughter channels. We will talk more about this group lot ID and the ICVI coming up. There are occasions where animals can move all the way to slaughter without any ID as long as they are maintained as a separate lot from unrestricted animals and are slaughtered as such. This could be maybe you're moving your animals from your home to the slaughter plant directly, and in that case, they're coming directly from your farm and they're being slaughtered together, and the slaughter plant would have your information on what you brought in and have the traceability information in case we sampled there and a slaughter sample came up, or a Scrapie sample came up on one of your animals. Record keeping requirements. We have record keeping requirements for producers and or markets. These items also correlate with the details needed for an owner hauler statement. We have a flock ID, of the flock of origin if known, name and address of the current owner, and the name and address of the owner of the flock of origin if different. So this is basically meaning, hey, keep record of the animals that you're buying from, you're selling to. That way if something pops positive for Scrapie, we are able to trace that farm. The date the animals were officially identified, the breed if known, and class of the animals, the face color or type, the official ID number supplied. So if you're putting in your Scrapie tag for PA 2020, and then with the animal ID of 18, we would want you to record that so that we can see the date that you put in the tag and the location and all of that, so that the animals can be traced back in case we're sampling at a slaughter plant and your animal turns out to be positive for Scrapie. We'd also like an identification number, a GIN, applied in the case of a group lot. Whether the animal was identified with a slaughter only or meat tag, this is probably something that the market would be doing. They would be stamping your dog ticket saying a meat tag or slaughter only, and any GIN with which the animal was previously identified. The owner hauler statements. These are required for sheep or goats in interstate commerce, so moving in slaughter channels as defined in 9 CFR or moving without official ID. When animals are in slaughter channels, the OHS must also include a statement that the animals are in slaughter channels. So again, we mentioned in the previous slide about them being in slaughter channels, and so it would be on all of the records stating that those animals are to stay in slaughter channels. Today, we're just kind of giving a preview of the owner hauler statements and their requirements. We'd love to do a follow-up webinar or session with everyone in case you have additional questions on this. Here's an example of an owner hauler statement for sheep and goats. Our team did put this together. It is online on the website. We have also put it in several different languages as well. So let me go through what's included in the owner hauler statement for sheep and goats. We have the name and address of the owner, the name and address of the hauler if it's different, the destination, the date the animals moved, your Scrapie flock ID. Again, this is the number that's been assigned by VS or the state, and it's recorded in the Scrapie database system. Traceability details, as well as the group lot ID, which we'll talk about next. And signature. This certifies that the information that you've put on the sheet is correct and that you have listed them properly. These can be printed out from our website again. They're in different languages. And if, per se, you don't want to print this out and use this form, a lot of markets have been creating dual doc slips, which we'll go over next. Here's our group lot ID to go over that more. So groups of animals may be identified with a GIN in lieu of the official identification if allowed by the 9 CFR 79.3. We've talked about those caveats earlier, but again, when you're reviewing this later on, you can reference the 9 CFR. The GIN consists of a flock ID or PIN, so that would be your number that's assigned by the National Scrapie database system, or your NPIN number, your state and federal premises ID. Then you could do a dash and do the 6-digit date the group was assembled. So maybe 06 -06 -24 as the animals that they were when they were assembled, and then the sequential number for each group assembled that day, so -1. Again, if that's confusing, we can talk about that more later on. But here it's giving us the traceability of, okay, we have the person's flock ID, where your animals came from, the date that they were assembled, which is helpful for traceability purposes. And if you've assembled multiple groups, we were able to go back through and figure that out as well. And doc slips satisfy the components of the OHS, OSS? Yes. So this is a situation where maybe your market will make it much easier on you. And so instead of having to print out and fill out your owner hauler statement, you can show up to your market, say Greencastle Livestock Market, This is a doc ticket that I created for the market a couple years ago, and it lists all of the required items that we went over before. And so when you check in as a producer, it would be filled out by their team, and then a copy would be made. We have one here for Morrison Cove Livestock Auction as well. It looks a little bit different, but it also has the same components. And then we have New Holland Sales Stables, where they've also created a sample owner hauler statement. As you can see at the bottom of New Holland's, it mentions animals are in slaughter channels only. And they have the owner hauler signature and who it was received by. They've also listed the pen number and the number of days, as this is a really big market in the eastern coast, and so a lot of animals are going in and out of here every week. Here's an example of on-farm records for sheep and goats. This is also another item that can be printed from our website, where you can apply your official Scrapie ID that you put in the animal, the breed, the sex. That way you can keep this on hand, and when you sell or buy animals, you would have the information. Records must be kept for 5 years after the animal is sold or otherwise disposed of. And that kind of ends our presentation there. Does anyone have any questions? I can go back to any slides if I went through them too quickly.
Dr. Ringler?
Yes.
This is Jim Logan. You talked quite a bit about record keeping, and I think it's important for people to understand that good records are a lot more likely to rule you out of a trace for Scrapie or really any other disease, more so than they are likely to bring you into a trace. So good records are extremely important in essentially defending your flock and yourself from possible quarantine or movement restrictions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Logan. I agree as well, and it's helpful for other disease management for your farm. In terms of biosecurity, it's always good to have that information on hand, especially when you are buying and selling animals to different people.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Logan, and thanks, Dr. Ringler, for your presentation. I know we have Dr. Wolf, Cindy Wolf is on also. She's along with Dr. Logan, is co-chair of ASI Animal Health Committee, so appreciate her joining us. And then Dr. Linda Detweiler, which I think you had up there just a second ago in your questions, is also on from USDA APHIS. So appreciate everybody joining us to help handle the questions that have come in. I do want to mention a couple of things. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, and we will post a recording, as well as you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. And those recordings are archived through the ASI website, which is sheepusa.org. Question was asked on the slides. That follow-up email will have a link for you to also access these slides if you want to go back and look at any of them in particular and digest what's on there. So we've had several questions come in about the tags themselves, and then some of the information in terms of movements and how to handle situations. So one of the questions is just in the sheer number of tags. You started off with several different types tags from different companies. And just a general question, why are there so many tags? You know, how often does that change? What, you know, you don't have to go into all the nitty gritty details, but just the process and how we ended up with so many different Scrapie tags.
Yeah, I can share a little bit, and then if my team wants to share more historical knowledge, that would be great. So in our CFR, we do have a process for manufacturers to become official Scrapie tag manufacturers. And therefore, if they do apply and they meet all of the standards for that, they can sell them. We do have some main ones that we use, and those are listed on the sheet that I've shown you. Let me go back to those. So we have Allflex, Premier One Supplies, National Band and Tag Company, and Sherwell. So those companies are approved to sell the official tags. And again, they've went through the process with our team to get that approval. It is pretty strict and they have to manufacture them in certain guidelines. In terms of changing contracts, that's part of the government process, of course, based off of costs and efficiency with the company. And we've been using Sherwell for the past few years, but prior to that, some of the tags were also from Allflex. Linda, do you want to comment more on that?
No, I think you covered it really well. I just, maybe one thing to add is that the tags have to show, there's so much they have to show the retainability, okay, and the durability. I think that's important. So that's like some of the criteria.
And in terms of, oh, sorry, I was just gonna,
yeah.
In terms of options, we do give you so many options because we want to make it cost efficient for you. If you look at the cost between Sherwell and National Band and Tag, there are different costs associated with them, and maybe you'd rather do metal than plastic, or maybe you have the tagger for the Sherwell, but you don't have it for National Band and Tag. So we just try to give you different options as well.
Okay, and then in terms of the RFID stuff, are these all full duplex or they're half duplex? Technical question, I guess.
Linda, do you know the answer to that one?
No, Diane's on. Maybe she knows there. I
believe they're all full duplex because of the reader situation, but I know there was a time long time ago, we were flirting with half duplex, but I think they're all full duplex. My experience with them. But there is a question on the 100 tags free. Why is it limited to 100? And just kind of I don't know if that's a budget concern or what, but the comment was made that many producers would do more if more were provided free of charge. Why the limit of 100 and why the restriction on it being first timers only?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, it does come down to budget and what we're able to provide. We provide thousands of tags every year, actually millions of tags, I should say. And so we try our best to get these tags out there to you guys. But if you do need more than 100 tags and you want more for free, there are options to get more tags, and that's through submitting Scrapie samples to our team. So if you have an animal that's over 18 months of age that dies, for whatever reason, and you let our team sample it, we can send more free tags to you.
Okay, and go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add the criteria for that is one that's we've had the money, so that depends on budget, and that can be up to additional 300 tags that we can approve for that. But again, that is budget dependent.
Fair enough. And on the lost tags, how do we record lost or missing tags? How's that handled?
So recording lost or missing tags, so typically we would have you write the old tag number on your records, and then you would write next to it newly tagged on this date. Because we've had that a lot with our SFCP farms. Where we're doing our inspections yearly and a sheep has lost their tag and they've just written to the side the new tag number and when they put it in.
Okay, what if go ahead, Linda. You can pipe up anytime.
I'm gonna go back. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go back to that last one because that also the free tags for the submission is also kind of a limited basis. So it's not like if every sheep you died, you would get 300 tags. So again, it's an incentive for you to turn in a sheep. So there is also a limitation on that.
Okay, what if I purchase animals over 18 months directly from another producer? How's that? Do they double tag? How do they handle that? Do they put their own Scrapie tag in? I'm presuming not, but go ahead.
Yes, so when you purchase that animal from that producer, it should have their Scrapie tag, so it shows the origin of that animal, which would be their farm. So if that animal dies and then we sample it for Scrapie in the future, we'd be able to say, okay, it came from that farm. It visited your farm at one point, but it also was born on that farm. So we don't want you to put in double tags. You would just leave in the tag that the producer sent the animal to you with.
Okay, and a question on ethnic markets. Ethnic markets don't want tags. How do we address this?
Linda does a lot with ethnic markets in New Jersey. Do you want to address that, Linda?
Or yeah, I'm not sure where. I'm very familiar with markets in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and even some of the ethnic slaughter in there. So we've not had an issue with that. Is there a certain region of the country where this is?
I'm not sure.
Okay, because one of the things that we do a lot of collections, because the ethnic markets take a lot of our adult sheep and goats. And so we collect a lot of our Scrapie samples at slaughter at these ethnic slaughter plants. And it's really essential for them to have ID. So that might be something that if you reach out in a certain area, you know, that they're giving you a hard time, maybe somebody in that area for us can talk to them.
They did follow up with South Dakota.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, we can follow up with that. I was in South Dakota in September of last year, and we didn't hear of that, but that doesn't mean it is. So we can follow up and kind of get an idea. But yeah, just we'll try and follow up. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know it's not the focus of tonight, but if you two are game, we do have some questions just about Scrapie in general. How many animals in the U.S. have been identified with Scrapies? How's the outbreaks, or what part of the country are these outbreaks? I don't know if you want to address that or not. And then another one on just basically what is the status of Scrapie in the U.S. and when will be Scrapie free?
Yeah, I can start by saying that's a great question. We are actually almost Scrapie free. We have to show that we haven't had a positive animal in a certain amount of years. And so right now we haven't had a Scrapie positive animal since the year 2019. There isn't a specific situation or area of the United States where we're having the sporadic outbreaks. We do have a map on our website that is under our quarterly reports that shows where our recent Scrapie cases have been. For the total, oh, sorry, not 2019, 2021, sorry, was our last case. And since then, if we can show that we haven't had a positive Scrapie animal in the next 7 years, so 2028, then we can say that we're Scrapie free to the World Organization of Animal Health. Our team's been working very hard on this program for many years. Linda, I don't know the exact number of positive animals that we've had over the years. Do you know that offhand randomly?
I don't, and Diane's on, I don't know if she does, other than it's hundreds, it's been hundreds. We had the first case was in 1952, so we're going all the way back, and that's what we diagnosed. And when we, back in the 80s and early 90s, we had very limited ways to diagnose the disease. So there were probably a lot of cases that went undetected. One, because of our limited diagnostics, and two, because of people maybe not turning them in. We had limited ways to find them. But I would like to add the reason with the identification and the record keeping is really essential for us. And I'll just reiterate what Stephanie said, that we must be able to trace back, because if we don't find the flock of origin or the herd of origin, if it's goats, then that puts us behind and there might be infection out there. So that's why. And Scrapie, most likely the way it's transmitted is usually from an infected ewe, right? A susceptible ewe. And it's shed a lot in the placenta, placental fluids. And so, and colostrum, milk and colostrum. So any lambs that are born from that ewe, but even in that environment, if it's a lambing shed or whatnot, the agent lasts there. So that's why we're really keen on having the animals identified to the flock of birth, so that we can get back if we have to and find that.
And then Jay, can you see that I'm sharing a producer flyer that we have that lists clinical signs of Scrapie?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to show this up here for a moment. And then also I can show you, if we have time at the end, I can show you our quarterly report that kind of goes through what we've done in the Scrapie program over the years. I can show 1 or 2 slides from that.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Another question, well, several questions actually came up on the tags themselves. And so one of the questions was the 840 tag versus a 940 tag. You know, can you use the 940 tag is the gist of the conversation. And then along those lines, can a flock owner use an 840 RFID tag without an additional official Scrapie tag? So the other types of tags that would be floating out there that are not official Scrapie tags, I guess, is the gist of the question.
So to repeat, they were asking for what's the difference between an 840 and 940
Yeah,
RFID tag?
Some folks have some 940 RFID tags, and then some folks are saying 840 RFID tag without an additional official Scrapie tag. I'm not sure if I completely understand that one.
So if you have an 840 tag, that would be considered official identification, and you wouldn't need to be adding more tags to that animal. For the 940 tag, that was probably historically an old tag that was used, and now we use the 840 tag numbers. Linda, you can still use the 940 tags technically, right, with another official ID?
Yeah, the 840 tags are what you had up on the slide are the ones that are approved, and they're the ones that have to be used if they're going to be used for that sole identification. So that's important to use if you're going to use the RFIDs, the 840 tags.
Okay, let's see. Question on tattoos. For animals with tattoos on a CVI, would you list the tattoos in each ear or the registration number under the official ID?
Stephanie, are you going to take that? You want me to take that, or?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yes, it's for animals with tattoos. On a CVI, would you list the tattoos in each ear or the registration number under the official ID?
Linda, how would you answer that one? Sorry,
If you pull that up, yeah. So if it's for a registered animal, then whatever because the registrations have to go through a process for us to be approved. So like if your flock is assigned a certain, or your herd is assigned a certain number, you know, in there, so that would be in one ear, and then the individual animal number might be in the other ear underneath it. So that would be, and it should match the registration, or must match the registration paper. So that would be what would need it to be on the ICVI, on the veterinary certificate. And you can see right here, you need to have the registration certificate accompany the animal at all times. The other thing with the tattoos, it's really important that would not be, if the animal's going to go into a slaughter channel for restricted for slaughter, then it has to have a tag.
Okay. Question come up on breeding stock sales. Which tags are official Scrapie tags, which I think you went over, but the gist of the comment is I use Premier tags with my official Scrapie ID, but some consigners use EID tags only. This would be for breeding stock sales.
Okay, well, let me find, so we have the EID right here. Again, these wouldn't be acceptable for slaughter channels or markets. But for a stock show, we do have more guidelines for that right here with unregistered animals and registered animals, and how the stock sale would sell those animals. Again, these would be approved through our website that you could find, and then the animal would have to be accompanied by that implant reader. And they would have the tattoo for unregistered animals with an E or an ET in both cases. And then it would be recorded on the registration certificate with the animal.
For both the tattoos, oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie, is it okay if I jump in here?
Yes.
Yeah, so for both the tattoo, for both animals that are using the tattoo as a regular official movement, okay, and for the EIDs, you don't have to be registered to use those. So you can use that. So you're people that have flock, you have to have a flock number. And so the flock number is what people put on their ear tag. Like mine's NJ6220, that's my flock number. So, and that's on my tags. If I decided I wanted to use EIDs, then I could put the NJ220 in the ear and use the EID on there, because I don't, if I was not using, that's not a registration number. So I could use that and put that in the ear, because that gives a way to trace to my flock, back to my flock. So to do that, and then I would have to put either a E or ET, depending on where I decide to put the chip. So again, you don't have to be registered, but you do have to have a flock number, and it has to be in our national Scrapie database.
Dr. Ringler, could you clarify one point for us? Earlier, you had made the comment that EID is not acceptable for animals in slaughter channels, and I think you just answered that a little bit ago. I think you were referring there to the implants. But the point that I would like to have clarified is, would an 840 tag or another external device, a tag that's electronic, be acceptable for animals going to slaughter?
Yes. Yes, it would be acceptable, because we would be able to have that visual representation on the animal showing that they have official ID. And so if they're slaughtered and at the end of the slaughter process, the tag is still in the ear, then we can pull that off and trace it back to the flock of origin. In terms of an ID that's implanted, we wouldn't know where that, where that is. We wouldn't be able to trace it back.
Yep, thank you for that clarification.
Thanks, Dr. Logan. So question on animals brought in from other countries. Are they allowed to be brought in and slaughtered at locations in the USA? And then how is that handled in terms of tracking and commingling?
Yes, if animals are coming in through import, then they're having to meet the standards through our import division of USDA, which would mean that they would have official identification when they enter the country, and therefore could be traced. Okay, Linda.
Yeah, when I was in the field just a little bit ago, I had 2 plants that did immediate slaughter from Canada, and they would import truckloads of lambs, usually coming in for slaughter. And they had to have the RFID tags, so that what was put in by the Canadian government, and they absolutely had to have those there. And then upon unloading, the slaughter plant had to scan all those, and then they had to cross-check with the health certificate. And if they had animals that either didn't have them or that they didn't match up there, then they had to contact our border, and there was ramifications that happened for them. So that was really important, and we really had really become very strict on that. But they came in with the RFID tags, and that was it. That was a must.
Okay, I'm not seeing any new questions pop in. So I think we've pretty much made it through most of them. I really appreciate you Dr. Detweiler and Dr. Ringler handling all those. There's a lot to process there and a lot to wrap our thoughts around in terms of how to handle different situations. So really appreciate the presentation and the patience in going through all the various questions. Would either one of you like to say any parting information in terms of folks, places you'd like them to go look and follow up information?
Yeah, sure, Jay. Is it okay if I just share the screen on our roadmap of the Scrapie program?
You betcha.
While you're doing that, this is Amy Hendrickson from ASI. I just also wanted to mention that there are previous webinars that we did on specifically on electronic ID, and so some of those questions can be answered by going to our to the ASI website and to the animal health page under sheep identification, and you can find those webinar recordings there for more information.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. So we also have advancements in the Scrapie program. This is what I'm showing you right now. As you can see, we had our first Scrapie case in 1947, diagnosed in Michigan, and then through the past several years, the program has grown, and now we've gotten our last positive case of Scrapie in the US. So by 2028, like I mentioned before, all states could be considered Scrapie-free for 7 years. I do want to mention that because of the work that all of the producers and the staff are doing in the field, we've collected over 745,000 samples through RSS and more than 58,000 samples on farm. And so I do want to show you states free of classical Scrapie cases greater than 7 years. This was a question that we got earlier. As you can see, we have Arkansas, who's had a case in the past 7 years for sheep, Pennsylvania as well, and Indiana. The states in the lighter green color are free of Scrapie cases for more than 7 years. And then just as my parting words, I really appreciated everyone being on the webinar today. If you have specific questions on the program, you can email Linda or myself and we will get those answered for you. Sometimes it's hard for us to answer them clearly on the webinar. It's good to just have it in writing and exactly what you need, and then we can kind of go through the different exceptions and caveats to the rule or send you the program standards. We're here to help as much as that we can.
Thank you, Dr. Ringler. And we'd be remiss if we didn't give another shout out to ASI for putting these on, and thank the USDA APHIS for helping provide funding for these. And as Amy mentioned, there have been some health webinars in the past, and as I said, you'll have a follow-up email that'll come out to you with links to this recording and the slides that go with this particular presentation. But along with that, you'll see some of those recordings that we have from the past, and hopefully all of that come together and help everybody manage their sheep better and keep this handle on the Scrapie program and the EID requirements that go with it. Dr. Logan, did you have anything to close out here this evening?
Jay, I just want to thank you again for doing the moderating and everybody for tuning in tonight, and special thanks to Dr. Ringler and Dr. Detweiler. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Logan. And so with that, we'll go ahead and close out, and everybody have a wonderful evening.
Bye.